Alright, I'm in the process of making a shaker table, a little end table. It's going to be an 18-inch square top, tapered legs. I went ahead and glued the legs up. Here are the leg blanks and the top. There's not much to show you as far as gluing up the panel or cutting out some legs. Now the next step is to cut the apron. And this is where you got to do some thinking. You got to figure out, okay, I want the top to be 18 inches and I want it to overhang, let's say 2 inches on each side, so that's 4 off of the 18, so now you're down to 12. So you don't want a 12-inch piece because you're going to add the thickness of the legs back on, so that's 1.5 inches each, so that's 3 inches. So now you're back to 9. Then you got, I'm either going to do mortise and tenon or sliding dovetail to connect the table legs to the apron. So you need to add a 1/2 inch to each one. So now you're back to 10. So I'm going to sit down and go through that one more time and figure very carefully, and then I'll start cutting some rough cut sizes here. Alright, what I came up for with my calculations is I want an 18-inch top, and the legs are 3 inches thick, so subtract that, and that gives me a 15-inch apron. And then I want 1.5 inch overhang, so subtract 3 inches from that. Now I'm at a 12-inch apron, and I decided to go ahead and do the dovetail, sliding dovetail to connect. So I need to add 7/16 on each end, so that's 7/8. So I need a 12 and 7/8 apron, and it's a square table, so I need 4 of those. And I'm going to mark them about 13.25 to give me a little extra square up room on each end. So 13.25 here, 26.5, 39.75, 40 or 52. So good. Alright, so now I'll cut those up and get them ripped down to the right size. Okay, I sold somebody a few weeks ago that I didn't really measure my boards in the shop, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I tried to explain it to them, and here's what I do. I set up a stop block. You see the block sitting over on my fence, and I've measured exactly 12 and 7/8 from that stop block to the inside edge of the blade, and that's the length that I want my aprons to be. Now what I'll do is I'll slide that block back to where I line the board up, because you don't want to use a cross-cut sled or a miter gauge and the fence at the same time, because you could get binding and have the board fly back at you. So what I'll do is I'll slide my board up against that, then I'll start pushing forward, and it will go off with the stop block, but it'll still be exactly 12 and 7/8 to the blade. So what I'm going to do first is square up the end. That's why I cut them a little bit extra long. Then I'll cut 4 apron pieces to 12 and 7/8. So now you can see I've got 4 pieces that are all exactly the same length, and they're all 12 7/8 because they came off that stop block that I measured from. That way, if you try to measure and line up on the mark on every one, you might be off a 32nd or a 16th on one and then another, so you end up with a box that's not really square. So this way, even if I'd have been off a little bit on my measurement from the stop block to the blade, all of them would still been the same length and it'll still come out square. So you don't really measure on the board, you measure on your equipment set up for repetitious cuts of exactly the same length. I got all these cut to the same length, and I've run through the saw and squared up one side. Now I need to set them to all the same width, and the plans call for the aprons to be 4.5 inches wide. So I'm going to set my fence to 4.5 inches. And the height is already set properly. So now I'll rip these down to 4.5 inches. Now we've got 2 operations left to do on those. One is to put the dovetail on the ends, because they're going to attach to the legs with a sliding dovetail joint, and then the other is to pick out which one's going to be the front and cut the drawer piece out of it. I've laid 3 of these pieces end to end. Since they were all cut out of the same board, the grain flows through there. So this to be the left-hand sides, and this to be the right-hand apron, and this to be center. That way you get the wrap-around grain. This being the back really doesn't matter because nobody can see that anyway. At least the sides, the front, and the other side will wrap around. All right, I don't know if you can see these lines or not, but I've laid out the. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. I've laid out the drawer front on the front apron, and I'm going to cut that out. What I want to do is cut these long pieces first. That will give me this in here, and then I'll cut this part off and this part off. Then I'll glue these back together, but I'll have a drawer front that matches the grain for all of that. And I'm going to cut it on my bandsaw because I want to keep the kerf as small as possible. The thinnest table saw blade I have is 3/32. Well, that's 6/32 when you do it on 2 sides, so that's 3/8. That's a pretty 3/16 gap on the drawer is pretty big. I'd rather keep it a little bit smaller than that. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then we'll get started on the dovetails. Alright, I'm getting ready to glue back together the drawer front after having cut the drawer face out of it. let that dry up and start to work on the dovetails. Alright, I've got my router table set up with a 1/4 inch straight bit, and I got all my table legs marked. I've already cut some of them. What I'm doing is taking the 1/4 inch bit first, and I've set it for exactly 7/16, and I'm cutting out the bulk of the dovetail first. Then I'll come back with a dovetail bit and cut it again. That way it's not quite as big a strain on the router and trying to hog all that out at one time. So I'm going to show you one. I've already done 3. I almost forgot to tape it. I'm going to show you one of them, then I'll change bits when we do the other. Notice I've also got a stop line marked. When I get down here, I'm going to stop, back up, so the groove doesn't show beyond the apron. You have to be careful when you're marking these out because you want the dovetail to be on the same side that you're going to taper. And also, what I did is I set them all up facing each other to make sure they're all on the inside, making sure I got them exactly where I want them before I cut them. Now I need to change bits and do the dovetail portion. Just a quick note on how I set these bits up. Fortunately, I've got a router that I can adjust with the crank. It's a Triton brand router. You can change the bits above the table. You can also buy router lifts and whatever router you've got in it. I found this one a few years ago and I really like it. And it's a big router too. It's like 3 1/4 or 3 1/2 horse. Alright, so I've got these little precision bars. This is 1/8 and 5/16, so it gives me the 7/16. Set those down beside it, and then just lower it down. Okay, that's where I want it, the 7/16. I'll lock it in, and we're ready to go. Okay, I've got the fence set, so this is exactly the right distance from the center of the bit, which is 3/4 of an inch. Because the table legs are 1.5 inches thick, and I want the router dovetail right in the center, so I set it for 3/4 of an inch from the center of the bit. And I've also made some test cuts. This is what we're going to end up with. But now we're ready to get started. I'm going to cut a couple, and then I'll turn the video off. Well, it's beginning to look a little bit more like a table. Still got a lot left to do. I got to notch those dovetails so they fit all the way down, flush with the top of the legs. Obviously got to make the drawer, got to taper the top and taper the legs, and then glue it all up and stain it. But we're getting there. Okay, you can see the dovetail grooves I cut in the legs, and I've also cut the dovetail on the end of the aprons. But you see that they're sticking up a little bit because I want it to come down past this, so I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch notch in each one, and then it'll come down flush with the top of the table and cover this bottom here. Well, I'm going to show you, I'm doing it by hand, I'll show you one. You set these up in the vise, measure down 4 inches. You're going to cut a 1/2 inch off. These are 4.5 inches wide. Mark it, cut. Now the one thing to watch out for is don't cut too far because you don't want to leave a saw mark in the front of the panel. And then you flip it on its side. I've already done one end. I'm going to show you this end, and I'll flip it on its side and cut the notch off. Okay, and when I glue it up, I'll just make sure that this is flush up here. The hole is covered. Got a nice clean joint there. Alright, I made a piece yesterday. I realize now that I didn't record any of it. And that's this framework that supports the drawers. It's a tongue and groove square is all it is, and then the groove cut in the sides and it fits in it. Sorry I didn't record that. I also made a leg tapering jig. I'm getting ready to taper the legs. There's probably 1,000 videos on YouTube of how to make one of these. This one's pretty simple. They go from the simple to the complex to the, you can buy them off woodworking supply stores. So I didn't see any need to make another video of how to make a table leg tapering jig. So I am going to show you the process of tapering a couple of them. I've got it set for a 1/2 inch taper because my legs are 1.5 inches wide, and they're going to taper down to 1 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'll have this set in here, and the blade is set to hit my table leg at 4.5 inches down from the top, and then taper it down to 1 inch. And you want the taper to start below the aprons, which are 4.5 inches, so that's why I said 4.5. So I'm going to cut one and I'll show you how that works. Okay, I've got my legs ready to cut. I'm going to double check the setting to make sure that I've got it set for a 1/2 inch taper, and then I'll cut a couple of them and show you how it goes. You want to check right here, make sure that this is set for 1/2 inch. It is. And you want to taper the side that the dovetails on. So this is going to be the inside. So I marked the taper here, taper here. So there we go. Burning there, so I'm going to raise my blade just a little bit. I think I may have it set a little bit too low to get the sawdust cleared out. Common with cherry. So there's the taper blade. I got 3 more to do. Okay, I've got my drawer sides, front and back, cut to the size I need for length and width. And now I'm going to resaw them to about a little over a half, and then run them one pass through the planer to get them down to 1/2 inch. So I thought I'd show you how a resaw is done. Got my bandsaw set up, got the blade set, and here we go. Brings it down to about 9/16, and it's a little bit rough when I resawed it. So I'll run it one pass through the planer and take off that 16th, get it down to 1/2 inch, and we'll be ready to make drawers tomorrow. Okay, I got my little lunch box planer set up to take a 1/16 inch off of these drawer sides, and just let you watch me run a few of them through. Okay, that's it. Got them down to 1/2 inch thickness, and tomorrow I'll set up the dovetail jig, and we'll cut some dovetails. Alright, I've got my dovetail jig all set up, and I've got my side pieces in it, getting ready to cut the pin, I believe. I get the pins and tails mixed up. Anyway, getting ready to cut it, and I thought I'd cut one and show you how that goes, and then I'll do the shorter pieces. Show you how to do that. Right, I'm using the dovetail bit on this piece. On the next piece I'll switch to another router with a straight bit in it. we go. Now let's flip this over to the other fingers. I've already checked this out, so I know where to set it. Set this jig, this router out of the way because I don't want to grab the wrong one. There you go. Good fit. Good tight fit. Okay, there's the finished drawer assembly. Well, not finished, but there's the box assembly. This is probably the last time I will ever make a box or a drawer out of pine. It just splinters too badly. It doesn't look very good. In fact, I may remake this one out of popper. I haven't decided yet. But anyway, what we've got to do now is cut the grooves in it for the bottom and glue it up and round over the edges. Okay, I got the drawer box made. I didn't show you about building it. I think I did make some videos of making the dovetails and fitted the bottom into it. Also, I've got the guide rails installed inside. I use those instead of store-bought drawer runners. But you can use either one. I didn't video making those. And I got it glued up. So it's coming right along. I didn't make any videos of the sanding because that can get real boring real fast. And got the top cut to size. So next step is to kind of break the edges on these legs and the lower edges here. You don't want to leave those sharp because they'll break, you know, they'll ding real easy. So you just take some sandpaper and hit them about 3 or 4 swipes and you'll fit the drawer in. Put the front on the drawer. I'll show you how to do that when I fit it in. It's real easy. And put the top on and finish it, and we're done. At this point, I'm thinking of boiled linseed oil and shellac, and that's it. Pretty simple finish. Alright, did a little bit more sanding and rubbed it down with boiled linseed oil. It's all ready for the shellac coat now. Okay, finally finished. Got the stain on it. All I did is rub boiled linseed oil, sprayed shellac, and then put a couple of coats of wipe-on varnish on the top for extra wear protection. It's all done.